reason I'm putting these notes here is that I've been doing this for 30-some years now, and probably feels like 60. But anyway, one time I was preaching, Lynn, I didn't know you were going to be here this morning. I was hoping you'd be on vacation. I mean,
I came back just for
you came back. All these notes landed up on the floor, and I had not put any numbers on the pages. So we had, I think, Don, it would be a disjointed sermon, because I went from page 1 to 4, back to 3, and a bit. They had me back again, believe it or not, I think to get the thing straight, but the next time they had this flat, so it wouldn't all land on the floor, you know. I'm going to change a bit from what it says in the bulletin about the text today. I read Paul through and checked where he uses the word joy and rejoice. And the more I looked at this, and this letter we're going to read from this morning is to one of his favorite churches, of course. And he loves these people, and you can tell. He had more trouble with Corinth, and you can tell that too. There's as much as 7 letters in what we call 1st and 2nd Corinthians. But let me read, starting with verse 4. I'm in the 4th chapter. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to everyone. The Lord is near. Do not worry about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Jesus Christ. The word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
If I preach from over here, is it okay? You'll still hear me okay? Still. My dear wife, Lois, we were married almost 60 years, and she said she never missed what I had to say. But she didn't agree with very much of it. No, she did. We met when we were 15 and grew up together, and I miss her dearly. Like so many of you, I sometimes drive through the teller, the bank, at the SunTrust, wherever it may be, a Bank of America. And if you do it, you drive in your car, you get to the teller that's in through the window there, and she will send out a box about as big as a Bible here, and you put your deposit in there and so forth. There's things to fill out. Well, I did. I did that one day, and the box went in, she called it back, and I started to read the little signs on the window as she was working on this thing. This is the time this window will be open. Next notice, please underline, have your deposit slip ready so you don't hold everybody else up, or something to that effect. I thought it was pretty good. And then I noticed something else down here. She's still working on it. There was a sticker that said, have a happy heart. That's pretty neat for a bank, you know? So comes the deposit bag, little basket. And I said, thank you for the encouragement. And she said, encouragement? I said, yeah, the sticker down there. Have a happy heart. Oh, she said, yeah, thanks. And this sermon was born. It was hard. Lynn, the word is cardia, isn't it? It made me think. It stopped me. I finished the work and went off in my car, but I was thinking about that experience and why she put that sticker there. And I remember the little faces. Do you remember? They're still around. The little smiley faces. What are they called?
Smiley faces.
Smiley. I got that right.
Ah.
Smiley faces. Yeah. And they're neat, aren't they? And then they have some that are not, and then some cry, and you can paste them on your message there. A lot of people use them. And you know, they say, and it's true, isn't it? If you smile, the whole world smiles with you. But if you don't, it's right. But if you frown, they'll frown too. This is something deeper, isn't it, though? That sticker, that wasn't a happy face. That was have a happy heart. It was something much more important that caught my eye, and that's what I wanted to share with you today. Because you and I can paste on our faces, can't we? A happy one, can't we? Huh? You know. And if you smile when you meet someone, they're glad to see you. They smile back. Most everybody does. But a happy face can cover up a lot of sadness, can't it? You can paste it on. Gee, I'm glad to see you today. Hope you're feeling better. And you're smiling. That was brought home to me on a very sad occasion, actually. I was in St. Augustine at that church called the Flagler Church, their Flagler Memorial Church. And my predecessor, David Redding, did an awful lot of counseling. And I inherited a lot of that when I followed him there. More than I wanted to do, frankly. I wanted to do more teaching. And, but oh boy, the counseling load. Something one after another, 2 or 3 afternoons a week. There's one young fellow who came in, 23, 24, 25, something like that. And he was troubled. David had seen him before. I inherited him. I said, you got a story to tell me? You got a timeline here, something that can bring me up to speed? Well, we met several times. And I'll never remember it, one Tuesday, just after lunch, he arrived. And he was smiling. I had never seen him smile like that before. He usually had what we call a downcast countenance. But I caught it, and I smiled back. And I said to myself after we were with each other about 45 minutes or so, I said, I'm getting somewhere. There's a breakthrough here. Because what he had, his diagnosis was pretty severe. 12 minutes went by after he left. And somebody came through my door without knocking. He said, Bob, they need you at the beach. Well, I don't swim today. I'm in counseling here if you don't mind. Well, now. That young man, Lynn, there he was. Sometimes a happy face hides a lot, doesn't it? As I think back on it, he was giving me a message, wasn't he, with it? He wanted me to like him. He wanted to be sure that I didn't know that he was going to kill himself as soon as he left there. It worked. But I never forgot that. That day is etched in my mind and heart. A face can cover up an awful lot of sadness. Paul writes to us and says, for his church, and we inherited it, rejoice, he said. Rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord, he said. Not just a happy face now, you see. That was before they came out with these happy faces, but people were much the same in their hearts and minds, weren't they? Yeah. And Paul wanted his people to know God's gift of joy. And that's why he wrote the letter. He repeated it through the New Testament wherever he wrote, and so did the others, as a matter of fact. Pascal, a mathematician and philosopher of the 17th century. Seems like old times, doesn't it? 17th century. Could anything be relative in our world of the 17th century? Well, this guy was quite something. He wrote about an experience he had with God, and somebody printed it, and I attached it here to this sermon to share with you. This experience meant a lot to Paul, or Pascal rather, and he sewed it in his clothes, what I'm about to read. They found it there 9 years later, after he died. Here's what he had to say. The year of the Lord, 1654, Monday, 23 November. From about 10:30 in the evening to 12:30 at night, fire. God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, not the God of philosophers and scholars. Certainty, joy, peace. God of Jesus Christ. He is only found along the ways that are taught in the gospel. He went on to write, tears of joy. I had parted from him. Let me never be separated from him. Surrender to Jesus Christ. Nailed that on his body. And he did. Of course, these are words of faith, aren't they? Maybe he picked them up from the same source we did today, from Paul. He says, I am certain. Paul was certain about some things. Not in the sense that being a philosopher, of course, and a theologian par excellence, but he was certain not just that 2 + 2 is 4, or that water freezes at 32 Fahrenheit. No, it's more than that. There was even more certainty than that. He was certain of his relationship, his loving, saving relationship with Jesus Christ. It consumed him. You'll remember that he was probably there when Stephen was stoned. From a distance he watched. And later on the way to Damascus to bring back the Christians, people of the way they were called, he was going to bring them back in chains. And he met our Lord, didn't he? Saul, why are you doing this? He was never the same. It changed everything about him. except his drive and determination and wanting to be of help. And was quite a successful character, you remember, before that Damascus experience. And God picked him up along that road and brought him back. Different stories about what happened, how long he went. They sat at the feet of Gamaliel and the rest of it, but he went to seminary, I guess you'd say, try to learn something. And but he knew that his faith, he knew and was assured that his faith was sound, since it was rooted in Jesus Christ, who spoke to him that day. And all of his life is now experienced through his relationship to Jesus Christ. Here's some good news. Every single one of us here today has the same relationship with Christ. You wouldn't be here without it. That's good news, isn't it? That's the best news you'll ever hear. That all of our life is experienced through our belonging to Christ Jesus, who has come to you and me, who's asked us to come to him, to be a member of his family. And you have. And I have. And it's made all the difference in the world, hasn't it? Some people use the analogy of a lens. That is, they experience everything in life ground to that prescription in that lens. What is that? I belong to Jesus Christ today and tomorrow and forever and ever. And he will never let me go. I'm a new creation. Everything has become new. And the world's principalities and powers are going to come at Paul, the one that had that experience. They're going to try to take him down. They didn't appreciate what was happening. But they didn't win, did they? God won. We were not created for sadness. We were created for joy. We are to receive the gifts of the Spirit. You know them. They're all good. Wrap them all up and put them in a box, and you've got all you need for the trip. It's there. Now, there is such a thing as a broken heart, isn't there? There is such a thing as a broken heart. I have felt it. From time to time, I've seen it in my family and close friends. My grandfather on my mother's side lost both his parents when he was just a little fella. He was in Austria, and he was sent over, we don't know how, to an aunt who lived in Philadelphia. And he arrived there somehow. He's preschool, and the aunt took him in, and she was a single lady. Must have been a relative of some sort, it was mother or dad, because they were both gone now, and it was just him. And they had an arrangement with a lady next door on this side in a row house on 28th Street, and on this side also, 2 Italian families, lovely people. They always share whatever they make a pie, they share with each other. They could bang on the wall if you were in trouble, and the neighbor would come in. And my pop-pop knew those codes, and he tapped on the door of the lady over here, and she came and said, "Lou, what can I do for you? What are you doing today? You should be inside. Get rid of your stuff, all the stuff. He always carried stuff with him." And I can't get in. I don't have the door isn't open. Oh, I have the key. She got the key, open. There's a vestibule in those houses, a little bit longer than this. The door here, vestibule. Then another door here. And that's where people hung their clothes and all, their coats and ties. They put the coats and they put them there. He evidently came through that door and got in. This one was not locked. He came through and walked into his aunt's house. And you know what happened. There was his aunt on the floor, not breathing. Pop-Up left that day, never went back. As far as we know, he never talked much about it, but he was sad. That's 3 now. He had no one. God was watching out for him. God was watching out for him. Down the street of Philadelphia he went. Imagine that, by himself, preschool now. And a carriage went by. Horses, 4 horses I guess, and stopped. He was walking along and the fellow in the carriage got out. Said, "Little boy, come over, I want to talk to you." Well, he was told not to talk to people like that, but who else? So he went over, stood and, "Yes, sir. Where do you belong? Where's your mom and dad? You shouldn't be walking the streets of Philadelphia alone, you know. Come with me." He took him home and put him in the carriage and took him home and taught him the printing business. Taught him how to do printing. And that's what my Pop-Up did all his life. He was a Christian businessman. And he introduced my Pop-Up to Jesus Christ. Tell me God doesn't have something to do with that? That carriage? The whole thing. He had my grandfather in his heart. And Louis Worcester had his mind and heart open to what was going to happen. Couldn't do it today, all kinds of laws and stuff against that. The Pop-Up told me he got him a new suit. He'd never had a suit like that before, and he took him places and taught him things and all. It was a wonderful experience for him. And then he died. And there's Pop-Up again. A sad heart. A broken heart again, yeah. But by then he knew Christ. He was raised Roman Catholic. His parents were Roman Catholic from best we could determine. He told me, Pop-Up did, by the way, Lynn, I've asked my grandchildren, all 12, to call me Pop-Up. You can see why, can't you? You know. I told Pop-Up one time, we were over at his row house in Philadelphia. He said, "What's that you're working on?" We had finished dinner and I was doing my homework. Sunday we were homework for tomorrow. And I said, "Oh, Pop-Up, you wouldn't know what that is. That's called algebra." Well, that's a funny name. Yeah, it is, but it's complicated. Well, the answer to the first question is 9. This isn't going to end well. The second one is 7. My Pop-Up was doing algebra. He was introduced to it 3 minutes before. Think what an MIT education would have done with him, huh? His son had that. He became like our director there. An engineer's engineer. But you know what he knew? He knew Jesus Christ. Every time I went to see him and spend time at my pop-up, we went down to church. We went to Sunday school. When he passed away, I was there. I was 16, 17. And I watched the minister. I was very close. I watched the minister began to cry. Is he going to remember what he's going to say? If he loses it, what are we going to do? I thought to myself, you know. But he didn't lose it. He just told about. Later, when my mother asked him, did you know my father just got a new Ford? Oh, he says, I know. He let me drive it. He did, yes. We go up for water, up the Schuylkill River, and we get water up there, so we don't have to use the city water. Well, that's neat. Do you like his car? He says, I drive a 32 Dodge myself. And that's a brand new Ford. My mother gave him the keys. And I saw that 48 Ford as I went to graduate school there. I have a lot of graduate degrees. I always liked academia. So I was getting one at Temple then called an MBA. And I would go up that street there on Lehigh Avenue, and there was that 48 Ford for years. I'm honored to be called Pop-Pop. That relationship, it's a matter of the heart, isn't it? Not just the mind. Pascal knew that, and he wrote about it. We could use him today, couldn't we? We're losing our way, aren't we? In many ways we are. This is what a fellow who called Archibald MacLeish has said. I'm quoting now. The crisis of our time we are beginning slowly and painfully to perceive is a crisis not of the hands, but of the hearts. You can see why I picked this up. It's a crisis of hunger, but not a crisis created by any doubt on us as to our ability to feed ourselves. It is a crisis of cold, but not a crisis of cold created by any doubt as to our ability to put roofs over our heads or clothes on our backs. The failure is a failure of desire. It is because we, the people, do not wish, because we, the people, do not know what it is that we should wish. Because we, the people, do not know what kind of world we should imagine that this trouble haunts us. The failure is a failure of the Spirit. A failure of the Spirit, a small s. A failure of the Spirit to imagine. A failure of the Spirit to imagine and desire. I thought about MacLeish's insights, and the word that came to me was lost.